They say freedom is the ultimate wealth. But what if I told you that needing others to like you is the exact reason you'll never have either? There's something kind of tragic about modern life. We dress for others. We post for others. We even shape our goals, not by what truly lights us up, but by what we think will impress someone else. Parents, strangers on the internet, a high school friend you haven't talked to in 10 years. We're not just living, we're performing. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. You might think you're hustling for your dreams, trying to make something of yourself, chasing that lifestyle, the bag, the glow up. But in the shadows of all that ambition is a very hungry ghost: approval. Nietzsche, that wild German philosopher who didn't really care about being liked, once suggested something that hits like a gut punch. If you live for others' validation, you're already owned, not by them, but by your own inner prison. That need to be liked, to be seen as doing well. It's not harmless. It shapes the jobs we take, the people we date, the content we post, the things we don't say. It's like this quiet little puppeteer, pulling strings behind the scenes, whispering, "Don't rock the boat, don't be too real, they might not like it." And what's worse, that need keeps you broke, not just financially, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Let me show you how. Let's go back to your earliest memories. Maybe when you first raised your hand in class and gave the wrong answer. Remember the sting? That heat in your face? Or when your parents, maybe with the best intentions, compared you to someone else? Why can't you be more like your brother? That's where the programming started. You learned to be safe, to be loved, to be accepted. You have to perform. But you're not a circus act. And yet most people spend their entire lives doing just that, dancing for love, working for validation, thinking they're free while their self-worth is silently held hostage by the imaginary opinions of people who don't even pay their rent. That's the poverty Nietzsche was talking about. A soul-level poverty. A dependence on external approval so deep, you start sacrificing your real self for a version of you that looks good on the outside, but feels hollow inside. Here's a wild thought. What if being poor isn't about your bank account, but about how deeply your self-worth is tied to the world's applause? We don't talk about this enough. How many ideas die because someone was too afraid of being judged? How many people stay in jobs they hate just because it looks responsible? How many creators never post the thing they really care about because they fear it won't perform well? In a world where likes are currency, being unapologetically yourself is a revolutionary act. But that's not easy, right? Because the fear of rejection isn't logical. It's primal. It's tribal. We're wired to want acceptance. Back in the day, being cast out of the tribe could mean death. But today, that fear just shows up as overthinking, self-sabotage, procrastination, playing small. And so you stay stuck. Not because you're lazy, and not because you lack talent, but because you're unconsciously waiting for permission. From who, though? That's the haunting part. There is no judge, just echoes of people whose opinions were never worth that much to begin with. This is where Nietzsche's harsh truth cuts deep. The more you crave being seen a certain way, the less you actually are. Your potential, real, world-shifting, is buried under layers of, "Am I good enough?" And every time you bend for approval, You betray a small part of your soul. But here's the thing. You're not weak for wanting approval. You're human. The key is to see it, to recognize how the system of validation has been quietly running your life. And once you see the script, you can rewrite it. Because on the other side of needing approval is power. And we'll talk about that soon. Before we continue, if you're someone who loves expanding your mind and exploring the deeper layers of life, make sure to subscribe to Fractal Wisdom so you never miss another truth bomb like this. And stay with me until the end of this video, because we're going to unpack the real reason this approval trap exists, why it's making us spiritually bankrupt, and how breaking free from it might be the key to your highest form of wealth. Have you ever noticed how the loudest people in the room, those who seem the most confident, are often the ones performing the hardest? It's subtle, but if you pay attention, you'll start to see it everywhere. The polished Instagram feed, the carefully worded LinkedIn post, even that casual voice message your friend sent that somehow sounded like a TED Talk audition. It's not just vanity, it's survival. Most of us were trained, slowly and unconsciously, to equate being accepted with being safe. And that's why this goes so much deeper than it seems on the surface. This need for approval doesn't just cost you your authenticity, it's taxing your energy, your decisions, and your capacity to create a life that's yours. Not someone else's projection of success, not society's formula for worth. The truth is, needing approval is expensive because you end up outsourcing your sense of self. You let other people's reactions dictate how valuable you feel. That's a dangerous game, because the moment the applause fades, so does your confidence. And here's where Nietzsche gets a little brutal, but also incredibly clarifying. He believed most people never truly become themselves, not because they're incapable, but because they're too busy trying to become who they think others will accept. He called it herd morality, the unspoken rules we absorb from culture, family, religion, school, friends. Rules that tell us how to behave, what to want, what not to say, what to believe. And if you follow those rules too tightly, guess what happens? You might succeed, but you'll never be free. There's something Nietzsche said that stings a little if you really let it land. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. We're told to chase freedom, yet most people aren't chasing their truth. They're chasing acceptance. They're following trends, echoing opinions, filtering their truth into something socially digestible. But you can't build a truly original life from recycled beliefs. This doesn't mean you have to be a rebel in leather boots screaming at the sky. It means being still enough to ask yourself, what do I actually want? Who am I trying to impress? And why? Who would I be if I stopped asking for permission? Most people are so busy reacting to the world that they've never paused long enough to ask these questions. And if they did, they'd feel an uncomfortable silence rise up. The kind that holds truth in it. Because deep down, you probably know that you're living under expectations that aren't yours. Maybe it's your parents' idea of a stable life. Maybe it's social media's vision of success. Maybe it's a voice in your head that sounds oddly like your old teacher, coach, or ex. So what does this have to do with poverty? Everything. Because needing approval is the ultimate spiritual debt. You end up living paycheck to paycheck emotionally, waiting for likes, compliments, validation, just to feel okay. And like real poverty, it limits your choices. It stops you from taking risks, from telling the truth, from making something beautiful that might not be popular, but might change someone's life, including your own. And that's the harsh truth Nietzsche tried to get across. That to be truly rich, truly sovereign, truly you have to be willing to be disliked. Not maliciously, not with ego, but with quiet strength. Because if you're not willing to be disliked, you're not really choosing your path. You're borrowing one. Now, this doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop letting their opinions write your script. It's a shift from being an actor in someone else's movie to becoming the author of your own. It's a slow burn. And it's terrifying at first. But it's also the most rewarding kind of wealth there is. Because suddenly, your energy comes back. Your creativity feels alive again. Your decisions make sense. Not to everyone, but to the one person they need to make sense to. You. And that's when you start creating not just a life, but a legacy. Now, we're going to uncover the real source of this approval addiction, where it's hiding in your life right now, even if you think you've outgrown it, and what Nietzsche thought was the only path to overcoming it for good. So you've heard the message. Approval keeps you poor. Not just in your wallet, but in your soul. But here's the deeper question. Where is this pattern actually living in your life right now? Because if you think you've outgrown the need for validation, I've got news for you. It's stealthy. It adapts. It wears new masks as you evolve. It's not always obvious, like posting for likes or fishing for compliments. Sometimes, it shows up as silence. That moment when you bite your tongue around friends because your opinion might be too much. Or when you say yes to something that drains you just to avoid looking selfish. Or when you keep the volume down on your own truth, afraid it'll make others uncomfortable. That's still approval seeking, just quieter. Most of us are addicted to approval not because we're vain, but because we were trained that approval equals safety. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He knew that humans, at our core, are social creatures. But he warned, he who cannot obey himself will be commanded. In other words, if you don't set your own values, your life will get shaped by someone else's. This is why approval feels so powerful. It gives us a momentary hit of certainty, but it's like sugar. Quick energy, long crash. It doesn't nourish anything real. And this is where the cycle starts to really mess with us. Because the more you depend on others to reflect your worth, the more disconnected you become from your own inner compass. Your truth starts to feel blurry. You start second-guessing every move. Am I allowed to want this? Is this too weird? What will they think? That's the mental poverty Nietzsche was pointing to. And here's the paradox that keeps people stuck. The more approval you seek, the less approval you actually get. Why? Because people can sense when you're trying to be liked. It's not magnetic, it's needy. And it pulls you out of alignment, out of flow, and out of your actual power. And the uncomfortable truth is that most of us are not only addicted to approval, we're scared of freedom. Because freedom demands responsibility. It means standing alone with your values when they're unpopular. It means being misunderstood. It means being you, fully, even when it costs you likes, comfort, or temporary belonging. But that's where the shift begins. When you can sit with that discomfort, when you can stop performing, when you can finally ask, what if I stopped trying to be good in their eyes? and just started being real in my own. That's when the noise fades, and your true path, maybe the one you've been avoiding, starts to show itself. And now we'll talk about what real wealth actually looks like, and Nietzsche's answer to the approval trap that might just change how you live. Nietzsche didn't just criticize the herd mindset for the sake of being edgy. He offered something else, a radical alternative. He called it the path of the Übermensch, often translated as the overman or higher self. But it is not about ego superiority or becoming better than others. It's about becoming better than your former self. The Übermensch, in Nietzsche's vision, is someone who stops waiting for permission, someone who doesn't look outward for direction, but inward, who writes their own values, creates their own meaning, and lives from a place so deeply authentic, no amount of applause or criticism can shake it. That is real wealth. Not money, not fame, not control, but the unshakable peace of being aligned with your truth. This is where your energy returns. You stop wasting hours rehearsing conversations in your head, wondering what people will think. You stop shrinking your light so others can feel more comfortable. You stop chasing approval like it's oxygen, and you start creating, not to impress, but to express. But let's be real, this path isn't easy. Choosing truth over approval comes with solitude and with discomfort. You may lose some relationships. You'll probably be misunderstood. But here's the thing, that emptiness you're afraid of, that silence that comes when you stop seeking approval, it's not a void, it's a space. Space for your real life to emerge, space for clarity, for peace, and for alignment. Nietzsche believed that most people avoid this space because it forces them to confront the truth, that their lives aren't really theirs, that their values were borrowed, that their path was chosen by fear, not freedom. And when you finally confront that, you start living, not existing, not performing, not surviving, living. Real wealth isn't about having what others admire. It's about having the courage to live a life you actually admire. And that only becomes possible when you stop needing to be liked and start learning how to love yourself unconditionally. That's the harsh truth, but also the beautiful opportunity. You don't need more applause, you need more alignment. You don't need another opinion, you need your own voice. And you don't need to be saved, you just need to stop waiting. Because the moment you let go of needing approval is the moment you finally become free. If this message resonated with you, even just one sentence of it, let's keep this conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part hit you the hardest? What are you ready to stop seeking approval for? And if you're someone who values truth over trends, alignment over applause, and growth over comfort, this is your space. Hit subscribe and join the Fractal Wisdom channel. We're here for the deep stuff. Together.